We're here today at the counter-protest, which was meant to be a counter-protest to a lot of what many would regard as the far-right fascists coming into Whitechapel. They were then banned and moved to West London. That's where they're gathering. We've been obviously covering a lot of interviews with prominent people today, and that's what we're going to do now. So stay with us, and we'll get a flavour of what's going on over here. I'm with a very prominent anti-racist campaigner, Wayman Bennett. Wayman, I've interviewed you a number of times on Islam Channel. Today, many thought there'll be riots on these streets. Thankfully, there weren't any riots because the police saw sense. But others attacked it as a denial of free speech. What do you say to people like that?
Today, the Muslim community stood up for all our free speeches. A month ago, Tommy Robinson came to central London and denied free speech to every other women, young people, anybody he disagreed with, took the streets over and threatened us. Today, the Muslim communities opened up the whole of Tower Hamlets and said everybody's welcome, everybody can speak, and also stood up for democracy. And I think what happens is that people forcibly caricature the Muslim community are the people that have been the main people that stood up for democracy in this country.
I'll just jump in there and say, when you have the big Tommy Robinson march in central London a few weeks ago, I was there, and again, so many people turned out in a counter demonstration. There were a lot of non-Muslims actually, and I think today, obviously, the Muslim community, because it's in its heartland, one would say, British Muslims actually, in its heartland, you know, where the far right come to attack, they would naturally come out. But I saw the solidarity from a lot of non-Muslims on that day, you know.
Yeah, look, we come out in a united way, but it's very important that the message that goes out is that we're at the beginning of a fight against fascism, the far right, and the demonisation of the Muslim community. And if we put all of those people together, we can push back the attack that's taken place. After all, the Prime Minister did not defend our communities. What he said is there's a danger of people being strangers. When we needed leadership, he denied that. And that's the reason why most of our communities are peaceful. We get on with our lives, but we've been forced to go back to what our parents did in the 70s and come out onto the streets and say that our children and our people have the right to walk down the streets, because why isn't that freedom of speech? You know, Mukhtar Ali was beaten up right on this corner here, many years ago in the 90s, and we said that wasn't going to happen again. And we want to make sure that that stays that way.
But do you think are you saying that the Labour government's failing?
The Labour government is failing. In fact, it's tailing reform. It's trying to chase reform. And why do you need fake reform when you can choose the real thing? Historically, our communities have backed Labour, but they've failed to back us.
But you've got a black deputy prime minister. You've got an Asian of Pakistani heritage as the Home Secretary. You know, important figures in a very important government. They'd say that these accusations are completely unfounded.
I saw on my television a genocide taking place. I'm just a normal human being, and I turned around and it broke my heart. And when I said there's a genocide taking place, I would expect the people who are murderers carrying out the genocide to deny it. I would not expect the British government to deny it. And one of the problems we've got is that when we spoke out about Gaza, they then meant they refused to allow us to speak out on many things, and they keep doing this. And I think that freedom of speech, the right to be able to speak, is being defended by our willingness to speak up for what's happening in Palestine, and also our willingness to say that the far right are a threat to all of us. And these things have become intertwined.
So are you saying that being here today is just as important as speaking out against the genocide in Gaza?
There's not an accident that Tommy Robinson is in amongst the oppressors right now. We have to understand, when the enemies join together, it's our duty to join together to speak up for the voiceless. It's our duty to speak up for the sisters and the brothers that have been murdered and don't have a voice. It's our duty to do that. And it's a democratic society. You're supposed to be able to do that. And also, if we allow people to do that to them, tomorrow it's us. This is the defence of democracy. Okay, they look at us and say, they're Muslim. So they can't be defending democracy. They're calling for something else, yeah? But we're the people that have said everybody's welcome. You saw the mayor of Tower Hamlets make it clear everybody's welcome. I'll protect everybody, yeah? That's what we ask for our government. Protect everybody, yeah? They're refusing to do that, right? So let's be absolutely clear. Until that comes about, let's organise together. And do you mean, to be honest with you, we have to make a promise to ourselves. A sister should be able to walk down the street without her hijab being torn off and being bullied, and we sit at home and we're frustrated by that. We have to make these people understand we will not accept that. We will not accept that form of behaviour.
Look around you in the crowd, and what do you see? People from all nationalities, from all ethnic communities, speaking all languages. Young, old, black, white, men, women, everybody is here. Why? Because we are united in the kind of community we want to live in. This is historic, as was the Great Battle of Cable Street in the 1930s. I was taught about that as a child because my mother was there at the Battle of Cable Street, standing up for the Jewish and Irish and black community in the East End against the Nazis who tried to march through. So there's this great tradition here. The far right, Tommy Robinson, Farage and so on, and don't be fooled that they don't like each other. They're singing from the same hymn sheet. They're doing the same work. What they're doing essentially is going around the country to any community that is hard up, that's got insufficient spending on schools, on hospitals, housing problems, poverty problems, sanctioned by the benefit system, all the problems that all of our communities face all the time. And then they say, this is all caused by refugees and migrants that have made their homes in our society. It's complete nonsense, and they know it. The cause of all those problems is neoliberal economics, is underfunding of public services, is austerity 2.0, which the Labour government is now putting forward, and the causes of those problems are not caused by desperate people who felt it was safer to get in a leaky boat and cross the channel than it was to stay on the land. They're making desperate decisions because they are desperate. What has happened to our humanity that we blame those people who are the victims of war, human rights abuse, and environmental degradation? They did not cause any of these problems. It's inequality, injustice, and the rich that have caused these problems. So our message is that Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage, jog on, jog off, get lost. We the people will decide on the future. We the people will develop an economic strategy that does redistribute wealth and power, that does build the houses that are necessary, that doesn't throw every working class community to the wolves of the private sector and developers. Instead, we'll develop something based on humanity and social justice and sustainability, living in a world of peace where the Palestinian people do not suffer genocide with arms provided by Britain. Well, the policies will be developed, obviously, as time goes on, and so the details don't yet exist. But the broad strategy is, one, social and economic justice. That means, for example, an end to the two-child benefit cap, an end to the threat on personal independence payments. It means compensating the WASPy women. It means bringing about real social justice, particularly for poor children. Also, housing policy, which is about regulation and control of the private rented sector, building council housing, and not allowing London to become the plaything of big business developers, which are socially cleansing every inner London borough. This one, my borough, Hackney, and all the others. And the mayor's proposal to reduce the minister's proposal, rather, to reduce the requirement on social housing and big developments is an absolute disaster. What we need is much more council housing, and we also, if I may say so, whilst I recognise many people live in housing association properties, what we need is democracy in the running of housing associations rather than allowing them to become property companies.
Jeremy, this sounds like something Green Party is working towards as well. Can we see a collaboration between the Green Party and your party in the future?
Where we're agreed on policies, absolutely, of course. It's not about a competition for perfection. It is about unity to achieve good outcomes for working class communities and the poorest people in our society. And so we will be at a local level, obviously working with people. So here in Tower Hamlets, where there is a very strong presence of independents, we're not in competition with the independents, quite the opposite. Many of those independents have already joined the party anyway, so we're going to be working with them exactly the same in Broxtowe, in Liverpool, in Manchester, in Bristol, and so on all over the country. And next weekend, I'm down in the far southwest in Falmouth, looking at the sea there with a big rally. Hopefully we get to see a beach as well.
Thank you very much, guys. We have to go now.
One last question about. One more question about what's your plan about refugees coming through the boats and everywhere? The government has no plan. They're messing about. What's your party policy about?
My view on the people coming by boat from Calais is, first of all, treat them as decent, ordinary human beings, which is exactly what they are. I've been to Calais on quite a few occasions. I've been in the tents there, and I've spent a lot of time talking to people. Some from Afghanistan, some from Iraq, other places all over, some even from Palestine. And they've all been through hell in their lives. They all want to make a contribution in their lives, and they are desperate. There are 70 million people around the world without a place or a home to call their own. The rich countries seem to think they can either buy their way out of their human rights obligations or simply put up electric fences and razor wire and keep the refugees and the poor out. History is going to be very harsh on the behaviour of Western European and North American politicians over the war in Palestine, over the treatment of refugees. So my plea, which you heard in my speech today, was let's have some humanity towards it and recognise tomorrow, those people are coming by boat. They're going to be our taxi drivers, they're going to be our teachers, they're going to be our doctors, they're going to be our nurses, they're going to be our repair workers. They are here to make a contribution to our society. Let's have some humanity about it.
Thank you very much.
If someone earns more than 60 grand, they can't live in this country. So if that's the case, so if our nurses and doctors, most of them are below 60 grand, so what's your policy about to protect nurses and stuff?
I didn't hear the first part of your question. Very important question if you did. The earnings that the government requires for migrant workers or short-term contract workers or indeed students to come is set very high, far higher than the salary level of anyone working in a restaurant, working in a hospital, working in a school, far higher. And that means the cruelty of separating the earner, usually but not always the man, from their partner and their children back home. It's cruel and very damaging to those children. And so I want to see that earnings limit removed. I want to see people coming in on the basis that they have a partner here who's working, bring them in, let them live here, and let them contribute to our society as well. We're all the stronger for it. We're all the weaker for it. And I also say to the government, their sheer stupidity in raising university fees to astronomical levels for overseas students actually damages our universities and our economy.
Why did you feel you had to come out here today, though? Why you?
Because firstly, I want to show solidarity with all the diverse communities in London, right? This is not there's no such thing as a white area or a black area in this country. It's a free country. People are more than happy to live where they live and exercise their religion freely. So we can't have anyone coming here and capitalizing or dominating an area and saying, these are British streets. Okay, they are British streets, but they aren't white streets. It's for anyone who's British and more than welcome. Refugees are more than welcome to come and live here.
You're obviously a member of parliament in this area, or linked to this area anyhow, in this community. How important was it to still come out, even though the police had banned the demonstration by the far right?
So important, and thank you to Islam Channel for covering today, because we need the media establishment, the political establishment, to see the diversity and strength in the East End of London. We stand proudly united in our traditions of solidarity, of community action. where, it doesn't matter what background we are from. You've seen the diversity today. I've been with Bangladeshi women and other women in the local area throughout the whole day because we're very clear we will not be divided. We will not have the politics of fear sown within us. We will stand back and fight, and we will make sure that we send the message loud and clear that we are here to stay. And we fought for our rights before. We've had to, as communities here. The Jewish communities did so in 1936 at the Battle of Cable Street. The Bangladeshi community did in the mobilization in the anti-fascist struggle in the 1970s when Altab Ali was murdered just a stone's throw away from here. In the 90s when the communities came together on the Isle of Dogs, when the BNP elected a councillor, women were involved in that struggle. And, we've mobilized in other ways as well, including in the Iraq War, against the Iraq War in 2003. So we stand in those proud traditions of protest, of standing together when we face attack. And so it's so important, whether we are parliamentarians in elected positions or not, to come out and to really send a message and to stop the far right from spreading their hate.
You're one of very few Muslim women in Parliament, and you're a very visible Muslim woman because you wear the headscarf and you wear that with a lot of pride. How difficult is it to be in politics as a female Muslim from a minority background?
Well, I don't want to put any young or older Muslim woman or Muslim man off from coming into national politics, but I think most of them will know that I've not had an easy journey and I've been the target of far-right hate, racism, Islamophobia. But what's happened to me in my journey over the last 6 years in entering national level politics is symptomatic of what's happened to Muslims up and down the country, sadly, where they've been the target. And we saw what happened at Peacehaven Mosque. There's been other attacks outside of mosques, inside of mosques, and Muslim communities up and down the country. We're so lucky here that we have numerous amounts of mosques and so much solidarity among the Muslim community. But I do know that we need to look after the Muslim communities in perhaps areas where they're not as big in number. And my heart goes out to them and my thoughts are with them. That I hope that they feel today as well that we're looking out for them as well.
There are reports of a huge rise in Islamophobic attacks across the country, particularly against visible Muslim women. Do you think the government is doing enough to tackle that? I know they've announced £10 million of extra funding, which was very welcome, many Muslim groups say, just this week in Peacehaven. But do you think much more needs to be done? And how do you think Islamophobia should be tackled? Is it through a definition, or is it through other means?
Well, as you said, it is welcome to have extra funding, but I understand that funding to be more related to security at mosques, which of course is vital given the attacks that have happened outside of mosques. But when it comes to the Muslim community as a whole, surveys were done even before the last general election, which pointed to the fact that of course we care about issues such as Palestine and what's happening in terms of genocide, but we are also concerned about the NHS, about domestic policies, and we experience, just like other working class communities in the UK, issues around the NHS backlog, issues around housing, and those are the issues that we need resolved. We need policies that address all of these issues, because ultimately the Muslim community will benefit from good policies that are on these issues. We need to see policies that reflect, the urgent need for social housing and council housing in this country. We need to see policies that make sure that NHS isn't privatised. Ultimately, those are the policies that Muslims need in the UK, and it's going to help all the communities thrive, but that's going to include the Muslim community.
My final question to you, Afsana, is regarding rhetoric and how politicians speak and the words that they choose. And I'm talking about all politicians from all parties. How important is it to be very responsible about the words and how you say things and how you label things? And I'm referring directly to the Prime Minister using extracts from Enoch Powell's speech, which resulted in a lot of racist attacks here after those remarks were made. Enoch Powell's remarks, that is.
We stand against any attempts to divide us, no matter where it comes from within the political and media establishment, no matter which politician, which government speaks out or puts our communities at risk and at harm. That's something that I've done throughout, including last year, a few days before election day, when the Bangladeshi community was singled out. I stood out and I spoke up against the rhetoric that was targeting the Bangladeshi communities, because we have a history, we have a proud history here in the UK. We have contributed a lot, but it's not just about that, it's about dignity for everyone. As you've said, it's important for every community to feel safe, to feel protected, and to have equal rights. And that's why I've spoken out, and it doesn't matter where it's come from. I'm going to be standing up regardless of anyone in power and anybody from any political leaning. We've seen obviously Reform and UKIP be particularly targeting our communities very recently to our hamlets, and we send a very loud signal and message today that we won't stand for their politics of division and fear. We stand for the politics of hope and solidarity.
Thank you so much. So that was the MP for Stepney, I believe, Afsana Begum, and she's somebody who's obviously, I've described her as a visible Muslim woman. So you know, she's speaking very powerfully as well. And I could talk about, question her about the government's policies, a Labour MP. I've got somebody else I want to interview. Taj Ali, how are you? One of a British Muslim prominent journalist as well, and obviously somebody who's been covering this as a journalist and being part of it. How important is it for people to be here today? Because we know the police have banned the other march.
East London has a history. In the 30s, the fascists tried to march against the Jewish community who lived in East London. It was the same rhetoric about the Jewish community back then, that these people are not welcome here, that they don't integrate, that they live parallel lives. The Jewish community turned out. Trade unionists supported them. Then we had the murder of Al-Tabali in this city, in this area, in 1978. We had the National Front used to rampage through these streets, and it was only when the community got together and said enough is enough, we're going to defend ourselves, we're going to protect our businesses, our mosques, that they were pushed back. So people understand that history, and I'm proud that so many people of all different backgrounds, lots of young Muslims, lots of old Muslims, people of colour, people from all different backgrounds have come out to say that we don't stand for racism, that we stand for working class unity, that we want to bring our communities together.
Is racism and Islamophobia and other forms of racism as well, is it becoming an increasing problem in Britain because of the failure of politicians, perhaps government, or is this a societal thing?
It has absolutely been increasing, and I set up a new organisation called Radar, reporting and documenting acts of racism. We've seen an increase in racism, particularly in the smaller Black and Asian communities. So I'm talking about the northeast of England, Merseyside, Wales, Southampton. But even in cities like London, on public transport, in particular Muslim women who wear the hijab are being targeted, racial slurs, abuse. So it's absolutely on the rise, and it's absolutely linked to some of the rhetoric around, Islamists taking over the cities when we have the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, or this stuff around asylum seekers in hotels being a threat to women and kids. So our political class have failed to counter some of the right-wing narratives, and they've emboldened violent racists to march on our streets.
And how about the media? You work in the media as well, quite very prominent, as I say. How do you think they've discharged their responsibilities for reporting the truth? Do you think they've been responsible, or do you think more needs to be done? Or is it just the media? Media looks for the headlines.
Well, the British media is one of the most socially exclusive professions in Britain. British Muslims are significantly underrepresented. There is a lot of clickbait, sensationalism, making generalizations about entire communities, because outrage is what sells. So we aren't just the targets of racism anymore, we're the content. Without us, they wouldn't have people clicking on their articles, angry about things, engaging. So sadly, the media model that we have doesn't work for minority communities. Unfortunately, I think there's also an agenda from people to try and divide communities instead of bring them together. GB News, Talk TV, some of these alt-right YouTubers now who come to demonstrations like this with a camera.
I've seen some here as well.
People and get a reaction and put it on YouTube and get millions of views. They're not interested in solutions, because the moment you actually provide solutions for a community like this, they have no reason to promote what they're promoting.
What about the what we've seen over the last week, the attacks on the independent MPs, from, let's not mince our words, from Lisa Nandy, calling them anti-Semitic in the House of Commons, and then obviously everything, all of that unravelling where Keir Starmer literally got egg on his face because none of it was unfounded. How about that? I mean, what impact does that have in the community in terms of the feeling of isolation? What are you getting from perhaps in Luton, in the community over there?
Well, firstly, we know that Maccabi Tel Aviv fans have a history of racist violence. We saw what they did in Amsterdam. We saw what they did in Tel Aviv with a rival team. So the British MPs who have been elected by the people of Birmingham, representing that constituency, Ayub Khan, he said that he's concerned for the safety of the Muslim community there. It wasn't about banning Jewish people, which is an absurd proposition given that there are many Jewish people who would also not like to see them marching through our streets. So it wasn't about religion, it was about the safety of the community. And the reaction, the response from Keir Starmer and many in our British political and media class was to condemn us as violent thugs who are trying to prevent people watching football. Not at all. We want everyone to enjoy football, but we're not going to tolerate racist thugs marching through our streets. And we have every right, as people who pay our taxes in this country, who engage at the ballot box, who vote for independent candidates like Ayub Khan, to make our feelings heard on the matter.
And just very finally, there's a feeling amongst many that I spoke to that they just don't feel represented. I mean, I'm not talking about the independent MPs here, I'm talking about the members of parliament and particularly the MP for this area. How do you think that needs to be better articulated by these people?
I think it's about mass engagement. For too long, political parties have approached diverse communities through the prism of community leaders. Who elects a community leader? How do you define a community leader? You don't. There are no community leaders. There are communities, and no community is a monolith. So you have to represent the entire community. So I believe in mass engagement. And when you look at some of the young people that turned out in the great numbers today to defend their community, the people who turn out for Palestinian demonstration, that's lots of young people engaged with our political process. And yet, when it comes to voting time, voter turnout's decreasing over time. And that's because people feel like they don't have anyone to turn to. And sadly, within our own communities, we do need reform. We need to ensure that people are being elected not on the basis of where their family's from in Bangladesh or Pakistan, or how many years they've been a community leader or how many years they've been on a mosque committee. What are you going to do for young people? What are you going to do to fix the potholes? What are you going to do to tackle fly tipping and litter? That's what people care about, as alongside things like Gaza and Islamophobia. So, proof's in the pudding. We're going to elect people who stand for the community. And I think the rise of independent candidates, the rise of more political activity with the Palestinian demonstrations, it's awakened young people to get more involved in the political process. And I'm hoping that more of those young people, some of the most inspiring young people, very articulate young people from our communities, working class youth, are coming forward and challenging the status quo and saying, we don't want this, we want better for our communities. We want you to tackle child poverty. We also want you to do more for the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Whitechapel's seen many racist attacks in the past and seen a lot of campaigns of anti-racism. How important was it for you to be out here today and to organise?
I think it was very important, looking at the historic background in Tower Hamlets and the Cable Street marches, the incident with Al Sabali and many others. We wanted to come and show solidarity from Newham, even though a lot of our roots does derive from Tower Hamlets. I mean, as you can see, there's people from all different backgrounds, colour, religion, and we thought it's Newham's duty and other boroughs' duty to show solidarity in these events and let this be a deterrent. Those who want to divide us, they shall not divide us. We are united from all background, religion, creeds and colour, and we are not going to step back in our peaceful defence against those who seek to cause injustice and harm on our communities.
But those that got banned, the UKIP and them, I'm just giving a perspective. They say these are Britain's streets and we should be allowed to march wherever we want to march. Why is this a no-go area? What do you say to that?
Well, I don't see no-go areas. I invite people to come down, have a meal here. We've got Brick Lane just across the corner. There's people from all walks of life, and this is not a no-go zone area. I mean, they are misrepresenting this part of the borough or part of London. There is no no-go areas in London.
In terms of the range of different groups that are here today, I see that, as I saw when I covered the Tommy Robinson March in central London, that there are so many non-Muslims here to defend the safety of Muslims. And how important is it to be, I heard chants of solidarity forever, etc. How important is that?
I mean, this is absolutely paramount to the movement of the anti-racist movement, anti-fascist movement, that people from different backgrounds, colour, religions, does come together and show this solidarity. And I think I'm very humbled to see so many people from a non-Muslim background come together and show support to the Muslim community and wider Tower Hamlets and the London community.
Very finally, there's been a lot of change going on in East London politically. in Tower Hamlets, obviously a lot of independents. There's Labour as well. In your borough, it's mainly Labour, but there's a lot of independents there as well. And perhaps in Redbridge, we covered Redbridge quite a lot as well. Are things changing politically in East London across the whole, from here all the way into Essex?
Yeah, 100%. I think the whole political spectrum across the country, let alone Newham, is changing. I think people do feel, even though there's good people in different parties, but people do not feel that they've been listened to. They do not feel some of the policies reflect on their well-being and on their future and the children's future. So people are looking for alternatives to see how they can organise and, make a better community for themselves and their families.
But some will say it's important to stay in the mainstream parties like Labour and to fight your corner from within. Is that not a strategy that people should follow as well?
Well, what people do individually, that's their issue. But in general, I do see a consensus where people are sort of organising outside the traditional parties, whether it be Lib Dems, Conservatives, Labour Party. And I think they feel that they're not being listened to. Policies don't reflect.
So you're talking about the government really now, aren't you?
Well, you can see some of the decisions the government had recently taken. They could have made a better representation when it came to...
What was the issue with the controversy over the Maccabi fans in Birmingham? Was that helpful, or was it a disaster?
No, I certainly think they could have organised better. They could have come out with better strategies to deal with this, because this does not reflect the general public of the country, right? So I think they need to listen to the people. They need to listen to the sentiment. And I don't think whether it's the Maccabi issue, whether it was the issue over Palestine, whether it's the issue over the two-child cap, whether it's the issue of the benefits for the elderly, I think they need to listen. And I don't think so far they haven't been doing so as well as they could have.